My name is Jackson Jones, and I'm going to be telling a story of when I was battling myself, basically. It all started around elementary school when I never really liked the way that I looked. I always thought I was fat. I was generally one of the slowest runners, and basically it was me having body issues at such a young age because what I realize now is I put a lot of self-worth in physical appearance, and I still kind of struggle with that today. But I've gotten a lot better with it. And the second half is probably it started around the same time when I'd have trouble sleeping on nights when my family members weren't home because I'd assume the worst. And that would later turn out what I think to be the early stages of my panic disorder, or mental illness. And everything got worse around 2007. I was in grade 7. I always felt like there was a lump in my throat that I was going to throw up. I'd spit all the time. And I stopped eating for a while. Got to the point where I had to go to the outpatient because my parents didn't know what was wrong. And I went and saw my doctor, and they had me go and get my esophagus x-rayed to see if maybe I had heartburn. Turned out it was nothing. They offered for me to go see a counselor. I didn't want to do that. I think I said yes, but then never followed through with it. And then high school hit, and this is probably where the darkest days of my life were. It started out because going from grade 8 to grade 9, I didn't really know a lot of people. And so I had a lot of sleepless nights about being worried about having to make new friends and having just a big change in my life. It progressively got worse, especially when I was nearing grade 11 and grade 12, when it was apparent that I'd have to try and figure out what I was going to do for the rest of my life. And this is where I wouldn't define them as suicidal thoughts, but thoughts of the nights where I was having sleepless nights and not being able to sleep and just worrying all the time, it being 3, 4 in the morning, just wanting to go to sleep, but something in my head thinking about death or being worried about what happened after death, and then just thinking some nights that if I was just dead, then I wouldn't have to deal with all these thoughts. But I never thought about going through with them or ever had a plan because I just couldn't go through with it. And along with that, I started getting depressed. I think it was almost every single Sunday I'd get depressed because it'd be a new week and I'd be scared of what that new week had, and I didn't think I had friends, or I just had low self-esteem. My body issues are still going on at this point. I was never the most athletic. Like in basketball when I was little, I'd always hang around half courts and never run everywhere. I sweat a lot. I remember I called my mom and told my mom that I thought I was a nerd, and she asked why, and I said because I sweat playing the ukulele. In hockey, I picked goalie because it was the position that I didn't move the most. And this was still continuing on. And along with what later I found out to be my panic disorder, I also had a social anxiety thing, so I couldn't go to the gym because I was afraid people would judge me of how I looked. And then that is almost like a vicious spiral, and then you don't get healthier, and then it was just bad. And then going on from grade 12 to university, that summer was extremely difficult because the move from high school to university is something that I've never experienced. My best friend wasn't going to the university I was going to. I didn't really know if I wanted to be in university. The only thing I could get into was business because that's all I had set myself up for in high school. I didn't take enough sciences to get into engineering, and I just didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, and I was in a constant panic. I never went to any seminars or anything, so I didn't know how to register for classes. I think I waited all the way till August to register for my classes. Some classes I just couldn't deal with because I didn't think I was smart enough to go in those classes. And then some were night classes, and I was worried about not knowing anyone. It was bad. And the breaking point was, I think in early 2015, around September, I started getting counseling and helped a little. But I would still have those days when I would just sit in class before it started, feel like I was sweating, thought I was going to throw up, and then I just have to leave. And if my parents were home when I got home, I'd just say, oh, the class was canceled, and just ignore it. And then I got a job at the Delta where my sister was working. She basically said I'd be a good fit, and I reluctantly agreed to have an interview. They hired me. I was getting trained, but I couldn't do it. I was gagging, I was panicking in the shower before my first day. Then after the first day I came home, I was crying to my parents that I couldn't do it, and they asked me to try and push through. I tried the second day, and I just couldn't do it, and I felt like I failed myself. I failed my parents. I failed my sister. And at this point, I think my parents and I agreed that there was something wrong. So my dad and I went to my doctor, and I described everything to him. And he said that's basically a panic disorder. And I didn't really know what that meant, but I took it as a relief because I finally had a name for this thing that I'd been living with for almost 14 years, I'd say. And so he put me on a medication, which I originally didn't want to do because I thought it would change who I was. And I'd always hear those commercials about this antidepressant would give you suicidal thoughts, and I was already having those as it was. I didn't need them getting worse, but he assured me that it wouldn't affect me at all. So I agreed to do it, and I think that was probably the best decision of my life. I have since been on that medication for 2 years now. I can sleep easy at night. Those thoughts don't come my head nearly at all. I'd say maybe once a year compared to almost every night at one point. I've gotten my weight in control. I'm starting to lead a healthier life. And I've tried to film this time and time again, but I could never get myself to do it. I felt that not that I need to get my story out there, I just feel that if more people can come out and talk about it, it would end the stigma, and days like Bell Let's Talk days wouldn't be necessary because everyone would just feel comfortable talking about it, even though I'm it's still something I'm not proud of, but I work on it every day. I'm not ashamed of my mental disorder. I think it's a part of me. I just think that of the amount of people that go through something that's 10 times worse than anything I went through, I just want to get the stigma to end so that people can, even if it's not, even if they don't get 100% better, I can say that even if something gets a fraction better, it's a lot better than what you go through. The reason I filmed this was because I just wanted, not necessarily to get my story out there, but just to say to the world that you don't have to be afraid to ask for help. And to anyone who thinks that a mental illness makes you weak, I personally think it's the opposite. I think people who have a mental illness, recognize and try to get better, are some of the strongest people out there, because they have to fight day in and day out against their own mind that is working against them, but they push through every single day. And to those people, I tip my cap and say, you're not alone, and that there are tons of people out here there are tons of people who care and love, that are willing to listen and help you get through it. That was the shorthand story of my illness. There's a lot of details that aren't so pretty, but the long and short of it is my name's Jackson Jones, and I have a mental disorder, but it doesn't define me.